And so, Bill, on my screen, I see you, myself, Dan, and Michael. Is that what you see?
That's what I see also. Yes, it is. Thank you,
Terrific.
Anthony.
I'll be running the technical side of the presentation with the slides and come back with some of the questions that our audience may be asking as we go through. So I will, Bill, hand it over to you. I'll turn off my camera and we'll get started now. Thanks, everyone.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Anthony, and welcome everybody today to this very important opportunity for us to talk about the retirement concerns of seniors right across Canada. Today's program will have really four sections. We're going to begin with a short introduction that I will do talking about the CARP survey. We'll continue with a presentation from Michael Carter, and then Michael and Dan Dybel from BC will follow with a discussion. Following that, we'll have an opportunity to answer some of the questions that you will have put in the chat. Thank you for doing that. Anthony will go over those questions and pass them on to us. And I will say, if there are any questions that you have to ask that aren't answered by the end of the webinar, please send us an email either to Anthony or I at CARP. My email is vangorder@carp.ca, and we'll be happy to try to see you get an appropriate answer from whoever is the most appropriate to answer your question. So I also want to introduce to you the two panelists that we have today. The first coming to us from Powell River, BC, and out of last night's storm, and hopefully enjoying it, is Dan Dybel. And Dan is in what he calls his preferment. I love that term, Dan. You and I, other people may call it retirement. You've called it preferment because, like me, you are not really retired, even though you're somewhat past the age where you might have. So he continues to work as a consultant to small and mid-sized organizations, implementing processes and strategies through startup growth and succession. So certainly Dan has a very good background in understanding what's happening in retirement. He has an interesting story to tell you that I'll let him tell you, and we're really pleased to have him as a part of the panel today. Our other panelist is Michael Carter. Michael is the Assistant Vice President of Product and Development and Sponsor Experience Group Retirement Services at Sun Life. Michael, you've got a longer title than I have. Michael is accountable for product development within Group Retirement Services at Sun Life, including employer plans, sponsors plans, and decumulation solutions. And decumulation is a new word for some of us, Michael, so perhaps during the presentation you'll be able to explain what that means to those of us who aren't familiar with the word yet. I want to introduce this particular session today by talking about a survey that we did a few months ago at CARP, and we had thousands of responses to the survey, and 90% of the people who answered were 65 plus, so certainly will be a good indication of the thoughts from that particular demographic. Among those who were fully retired, 65% said the cost of living has negatively impacted their retirement income. 80% are concerned about the economic outlook for the next generation of retirees. And just under half of them said they might have to cut down on expenses to maintain their standard of living. And those that were still working, 75% said the cost of living was negatively impacting their savings that they wanted to make. 75% said they were concerned about the economic outlet for the next few years. Over half of them said they're worried that they're not going to have enough money ever to retire. And 40% say they were continuing to work because they just couldn't afford to retire. Their greatest concerns, well, the most dominant concerns were finances and health concerns, of course. Will I outlive my pension? Will I be able to afford normal daily expenses? Will I be ending up in a bad retirement home due to lack of funds? They worry about isolation, purpose, lack of engagement, and they're worried about housing, a key concern these days, and they're worried about their legacy. What are they going to be able to leave for their families? So from that, we learned a number of things. We learned that older Canadians are retiring during a time which many of them are afraid about living their savings. For many, the costs of living are greater than their income. The realities of affording housing and care in this context are a real concern. There's a lack of confidence in where to find good information. And a surprisingly number of Canadians seem to enter retirement without having a fully conceived plan. The current economy is creating great concerns. There's a lot of worry about outliving their savings, and there's insecurity regarding their legacy and what they're going to be able to leave behind. And of course, health issues continue to be an issue. So all of these certainly outline the need for the kind of discussion that we're going to have today. And I'm confident by the time we're finished this 45-minute to an hour session today, you will find that you have some of the answers that the people answering our survey did not have. And in that regard, I'm going to turn the screen now over to Michael Carter. And Michael, can you help start answering some of the questions that were raised in the survey?
Absolutely, we would love to. And thank you so much, everyone who's on the call, as well as Bill and the CARP team for welcoming me to having this conversation today. I really do enjoy hearing and having these conversations with my fellow Canadians, because I do personally view that this is really a challenge that we are all facing, in the sense of we're either personally facing it, getting ready for retirement, or are in retirement, or someone like myself who is addressing the retirement needs within my family and really seeing the personal impact of these questions, of uncertainty, of looking for answers to make sure that we all have the opportunity and the privilege to live the retirement that we wish to live. And so today, just to set the context, I'm from Sun Life, but specifically I'm focused on the part of our business that offers savings and retirement support within your employer. So within workplaces that offer pension and savings programs, that is the part of the conversation that I'll be focusing on today. There is support and engagement with all Canadians across the country through standard consumer individual advisors. So if you want to have a conversation, if you happen to be getting your workplace pension or saving support from another provider in Canada, whether it's Canada Life or Manulife or IA or Desjardins, for example, a lot of this will be applicable for you, but obviously you would get the specific answers from your provider. So with that, we'll start sort of having the conversation and answering some questions. So if we want to go to the next slide. And so today, really what we're going to be talking about is the way that we've been listening to you. And I think that's so important. And hopefully everything that we talk about today, you really see your focuses within our focuses, because we've been privileged to work directly with CARP and other leaders within the industry to really understand and try to really consume and get to the bottom of a lot of the questions and support that we should be bringing to the market. And that listening and constant engagement has really had us create our approach across three main areas that I'll be talking about today. The word deaccumulation is simply a fancy word for saying creating income in retirement, being able to transition from getting a paycheck through either employment or if you owned your own company, obviously through income through that company, to generating an income from your savings, from what you have generated or accumulated, saved during your employment years. When we think about providing solutions to support to you, we really think about it in three ways. First and foremost is engagement and advice. We really do believe that that's really important because every single Canadian, everyone on this call, has different dreams in retirement, has different current situations, different demands or desires. And so we really need to be creating personal solutions for every single individual dealing with your specific risks, your specific goals. So getting advice, professional advice is obviously really important. And I personally believe that you should get that from where you're most comfortable. So whether it's from fee for service, so advisors who provide advice for a fee without being compensated through any product purchases, whether it's getting advice through your workplace plans or for ourselves, for Sun Life, or providing workplace benefits to yourselves, you have access to advice through that service from salaried employees that are licensed financial advisors that are not compensated based on product purchases. So a more of an independent solution for you. Or you can work with other advisors within the marketplace, within individual. So it's really more about finding the source of advice that you're comfortable with and leveraging it versus anything else. We're then very much focused on the experience of living retirement after that. So now that we have a retirement plan, we sort of have an approach. That approach will change throughout retirement because things will change, goals will change, situations will change. And it's about giving that easy, simple experience to manage those changes through retirement. So that's everything from buying the retirement products, making that simple and easy and seamless, reducing forms, eliminating forms, which I'm sure we all hate, to making changes to how you withdraw your money throughout retirement, how you invest your money throughout retirement. And so that's really what we're focused on there is to provide that simple, seamless experience. And then finally, there are innovations in products. And so products, and when we use the word products, think of things like savings accounts, annuities, for example, registered retirement income funds. Those types of things are what we consider products. Not one product is going to be the solution for a single person or for everyone. And so what we're really focused on is creating the right tools in the toolbox, which we can then combine and craft through that engagement in that advice to make your plan become a reality and to make that plan work for you. So these are the three areas that we really focus on when we're listening to you and really understanding how we can support you in your journey. So we want to go to the next slide. So here is just a summary, and I think this is a robust conversation, as I'm sure we'll see in a lot of the questions, as we see in the pre-questions and so forth. And so to boil it down to one slide is sort of challenging. And so I would just highlight that these are some of the more common questions and concerns that we hear. And being so privileged to work with CARP most recently in a survey to even get even more feedback from you. So what we've been hearing in retirement is sort of the top three main concerns is, have I saved enough for retirement? Will that income or that savings last for my entire retirement? And more commonly is, am I able to take care of loved ones as I sort of depart and my life cycle concludes? Can I take care of my spouse or my children or charities or whatever your loved ones means to you? And so, as we sort of digest and understand that, we also recognize that in dealing with those focuses of, is my retirement going or is my savings going to last for my entire retirement? You're also looking for steady, predictable income, but to retain flexibility. So, we talked about sort of uncertainty in retirement, and that comes in a number of forms. but being able to have that predictability so you can budget, so you can live a full retirement, but also retain flexibility within that predictability. And then we also hear that things are complicated. Sort of my opening kind of illustrated that sort of the retirement solution is going to be slightly different for everyone, but you're looking for clear guidance and support. You're looking for help to really make key decisions now and continuing throughout retirement as you adapt to changes. So we're constantly thinking about how we can do that for you. Some things that have really worked well for you, for example, is what we call target date funds, or these are investments that people use in savings that automatically manage your investment risk throughout your journey to hopefully give you the best return possible. So that automation is really helpful to you. And so hopefully that resonates with you because it's something that we're focused on. But also, what we're really interested in is that annuities have provided a lot of these benefits for a while, right? Predictability, guaranteed, longevity protection. So you get an income for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live, but they're not being leveraged by a lot of Canadians. We might get 20% of Canadians that are interested in it and less than 10% that leverage it. And it really comes back to that concept of we want to retain flexibility. We want to retain the ability to support loved ones in a broad definition of loved ones. And so the desire for that flexibility really guides people to use more savings account in retirement. And so we've sort of been digesting that, and we'll talk about how we've been addressing it. And then finally, as we move off this slide, I'll simply highlight that there's unfortunately one additional risk that we all face in life. We're all human, we're all mortal, and part of that are increasing health challenges that we face during our life. And the ability to continually actively manage your investments, actively make prudent decisions, from 55 right up till 100, potentially 102. Some of us will make it till, and so that cognitive decline is a risk that we really are focusing on to make sure that we're all protected. I want my loved ones protected as they retire. I want to be protected as well. And so how can we introduce sort of that guidance and that ongoing automation that protects us? So if we want to move to the next slide. So I want to just quickly review some of the key CARP insights that we took away. I know Bill did a great summary of overall what we heard through that survey. And I want to sort of hone in on a couple of things that really meant a lot to us. And so hopefully, again, our focus is your focus. And through the conversation and the questions today, we can kind of align that. So we want to move to the next slide. So first and foremost, it was wonderful to see that 72% of people are really focused on getting some level of advice and planning support as you prepare for or live retirement. And as I highlighted, we think that's really important. And it's so important that we really encourage you to get that from where you feel most comfortable, whether it's from Sun Life, whether it's within your workplace plan, whether it's through individual advisors, or someone else that you feel more comfortable with within the industry. It's more important to engage and plan than it is to get it from any particular source. The one thing that we do recognize, though, is that sort of trails off a little. We all get excited in retirement. We all, life gets busy. We start focusing on friends, family, travel, whatever, hobbies, whatever is important to you. And so that engagement with advisors can go down over time. And so being able to stay on plan and to address changes within the economy or within the market, sort of that risk increases a little. So we're very focused on that. Longevity, as we highlighted. So longevity is just a fancy word for saying I need income for the rest of my life and I don't know how long I'm going to live. So planning for an uncertain period of time is challenging. And so the focus of sort of managing that risk is the top sort of focus for a lot of people. And what we found interesting, a number that's not on here, but I always resonate, is 43% said the best help you could provide me is just a clear answer to how much money can I take out of my savings and be okay, and to have enough money for the rest of my life. And so that was really interesting. And then the last one is healthcare costs and how much we're all having to address within the healthcare system. And so that's really focused in my head on flexibility. You guys want flexibility. Let's move on to the next slide. And so here we can start answering some of the questions that I've heard throughout my conversations, but also through some pre-questions. So we really focus on two main products, the main products that Canadians use in living their retirement. There are what we would call drawdown accounts, or you could think about these as basically bank accounts that we have our money saved in that we then draw from to pay for our expenses on a monthly, annual basis. They include savings accounts. So these are taxable accounts that get charged dividends, capital gains, interest tax, and so forth. There are TFSAs that also provide that income and obviously have tax benefits to it that we can address if you want to. The ones that we really focus on, though, are the Registered Retirement Income Fund, which is the fund that you create from your RRSP, one of the main ways that Canadians save. And then the Life Income Fund, or the LIFT, which is, again, the conversion of your pension. So if you've had a defined contribution pension plan at an employer, that gets converted into a LIFT. The benefit here is that they provide great flexibility. You can, decide to invest in a variety of instruments within those accounts, whether they're bonds or stocks or GIAs or GICs, for example. They provide market growth based on what you're investing your money in. They allow you to transfer that wealth to your loved ones, whether it's your spouse or your children or someone else. And so they're a great vehicle for a lot of flexibility, but they don't provide any guardrails, except for your lift. You'll have a minimum withdrawal so that you generate a minimum amount of income, and then you have a maximum to deal with not taking all the money out all at once. Your RIFT is very similar. It has a minimum, but it doesn't have a maximum. So you can take out as much as you wish in any year, but you do have tax consequences to that, which you just need to be cognizant of. The annuity is a fabulous product in the sense that it provides a reliable, predictable income that you can budget against. That income is generated for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. It provides survivor benefits to take care of your spouses, death benefits and so forth, but it doesn't provide the same flexibility, to a large degree that a LIFT or RIF does. There is some flexibility depending on the type of annuity you're using, but it's nowhere near as flexible as a RIF lift. And so when we were thinking about these two products, they sort of seem to be on complete opposite ends of the dining room table, if you want to think about it. It's either great flexibility in a variety of areas, market growth, investment options, withdrawal capabilities, but very little guidance and support. You really need to use advice to really manage and make decisions. Or you have annuities on the other side that offer you great predictable protection for the rest of your life, but not a lot of flexibility. And so we really took that away and said, how could we help you do better? What's another product we would want to put on this table to provide you additional tools in that tool chest to give you great outcomes in retirement? So if we want to go to the next slide. So that's really where we came up with the solution that the category that we call it is the target age solution. And we really reflected on a lot of the benefits that people were telling us from their savings days using target date funds. This idea that when I was saving and needing to make investment decisions, all I needed to do was make the decision of when do I want to retire? I want to retire when I'm 65 or 62 or 68, whatever it might be. And then my investments are managed for me. I just put my regular amount of savings in there each paycheck or each month or each year, whatever worked for you. And my investment portfolios was managed for me to that date. And it performed very well for Canadians. And target date solutions are offered by a variety of providers in the industry. This is by no means a Sun Life solution. These solutions are provided by BlackRock, which is one of the biggest fund managers in the world. Fidelity is another really big one, obviously Sun Life and so forth. And so a lot of people, 63, 65% of individuals that we support in the savings journey are using these products and really like them. And so we created the target age solution for retirement income, where now all you need to do is make the decision of what is my maturity age, or at what age do I want my money to last? And usually you will pick an age past your likely life expectancy, so 95, for example. And then the solution manages all your withdrawals, all your investment decisions throughout that whole period of time. So it's a fully automated solution. Each year, the solution will determine how much you can safely take out of that product for your money to last until your maturity age. It takes into account any ad hoc withdrawals you took, market returns, any lifts, minimums or maximums that the government requires you to consider, and provides you that monthly or annual paycheck. It also provides that reliability. So as I highlighted, it's constantly taking into account movements within the market, provides a very well diversified, and the word diversified just means that your money is invested in a variety of industries around the world. And so, you're not exposed to any one area being overly down. Say Europe has a really horrible year from an economy perspective. You're not entirely invested in Europe. So diversification is really important from an investment standpoint. It's flexible, so you can take money out of this solution at any time. All of your money, a little bit of your money. If you change your mind a year in, 3 days in, doesn't matter. You can move your money out. It's not locked in whatsoever. And then it also provides that growth opportunity, something that annuities typically don't do, depending on where rates are. And so that helps. There are a lot of questions around the cost of living. One of the best defenses around the cost of living is making sure that you're invested within the market so that your money grows throughout your retirement so that you're able to generate more income in your retirement. Depending on your various calculations, anywhere to 50% of your income in retirement could be coming from the actual growth of your money in retirement. And so that's obviously a really important consideration. Then finally, it was the simplicity, really reducing, dealing with that complexity. How can we make your decisions just a couple here and there? And so that's the solution that we came up with to hopefully add a tool to the toolbox for you so that we can make great outcomes for you, so that you can live the retirement that everyone has worked so hard for and really focus on what matters to you versus focusing on managing your money. And so I think at this point, I'd love to start a conversation with Dan, who has had a wonderful, exciting life, as I've been able to learn over our conversation in the last couple of weeks, that I think you would really value from his insight and what he's done. So Dan, looking forward to sharing a little bit of what you've shared with me over the last couple of weeks. You started getting ready for retirement at 27. You're now approaching sort of 70 years old. Hopefully you don't mind me saying that, but putting an
Right.
age on you. And so you've really had a great journey, and I think a lot of people could value the story that you've gone through in your life. So maybe let's start the conversation there. What is your story?
Well, thanks. I enjoy being here. I appreciate the chance to share my story because I think I've been very fortunate. My planning really started in my early 20s when got my first job that gave me more than just enough money to go paycheck to paycheck. I got hired by Imperial Oil, and during the interview process, as I was taken in, there was this really old guy. He was probably 45 or 50 years old, and he was asking me what I wanted to do when I left Imperial Oil. And I said, I haven't even had my first day of work. And he was the one who started me thinking about making sure that I was thinking about an end goal from now. And he introduced me to some of the things that were available to us in the company. And it really sat kind of idle. I did some things at the beginning, and it wasn't until my parents died a few years later. I lost both my parents rather abruptly, just before I was 30. And I realized that planning was something that was going to change. My parents had put together plans. They had all kinds of insurance and things like that in place to take care of us. And things changed, their health impacts and stuff. So I started taking it really seriously when I was 27. And that was when I really started digging in and learning. And I started investing in what was manageable for me, which at that time was mutual funds. And I think when we were talking the other day, I said, I think the first mutual fund I bought was the Cundell Peters stuff when I was in my 20s. And the reason I went to that was because I knew I was consciously incompetent. I knew I didn't know what I was doing, but I had an idea of where I wanted to go. And so I talked to different advisors in the market, and it seemed as though that fund at that time was well suited for me. And then I just kept educating myself over the years, and things changed. I mean, when I got married, that changed things. Then a couple of years after I was married, my wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. 10 years after that, she wasn't able to work. So all of a sudden, our income was cut in half. We had expected to have to plan for children, but she wasn't able to have kids. So that changed our planning. And then at one point, we decided that it was time for us to step away from the corporate world. And I decided to go out as an entrepreneur, and that changed again. And so with each of the changes in life, it's it's required a real setback. And I've learned to look at things every year. Now, this year, I usually do my planning in January and in October. And the reason I like to do October is it's late enough in the year that I kind of have a sense for what's happened in the economy and things, because the tax year is in January. And so for me, I look at that, and I've learned to do that. And then I do a check-in in January to see how I did. And in October, there's still time to buy, sell, move things around, shift things to really take advantage of my tax position for that year. Well, this January, I did all my planning and things. And a few months later, my wife died. And that has left me with a very different future going forward. So I'm really still working into that. And I've learned a lot from my friends who are older than me. I watch them. One of the biggest things that I've learned is, first of all, no matter what you plan, a plan is what you deviate from. It's like nothing ever seems to happen right that way. But also with my friends who are a few years older than me and who are in the range that I'm entering now, where everybody around is retired, it's really about choosing a lifestyle and planning around that. And really as much managing your cost as much as trying to manage your revenue streams. And I think that would be where I've kind of landed at this moment as we speak.
Right. And so I think, maybe one thing that I've really taken away is the importance of planning, even in an imperfect decision, as in, we might not be able to make a perfect decision every single time, but at least making a step in the direction, an 80% solution is better than making no decision and sort of waiting and procrastinating. And so I think that's something that I really took away from your story.
Yeah, and I belong to a Toastmasters group called Money Matters, where we just get together to talk about money. And one thing I've learned from them is it's never too late to start.
Mm.
There are people in that group who were weeks before stepping out the door when they suddenly went, my goodness, what am I going to do? And they took action and were able to do it. I appreciated I've got a whole bunch of questions from the presentation today. It's stimulated a lot of thinking for me and some opportunities and things that I had forgotten about or hadn't thought of before. So I really enjoy making sure I go to presentations like this
Mhm.
and learn. And there are always presentations within a few blocks of you. There are so many
Mm.
resources available to you or that will come to your house if you're not able to get out.
I do see lots of passionate questions coming through. So just to reassure everyone, we do get to the Q&A section that will start to answer some of those questions. So hold tight. I see the passion there. We'll get there. So maybe as we start to get ready for questions, what are some of the products or solutions, even the way you plan, that really was helpful to dealing with those changes, dealing with that uncertainty, everything that you talked about? What was really impactful for you?
Okay, yeah. Well, as I said, I started with mutual funds because I didn't have the confidence to do individual investments. Then I went into, as my knowledge grew, I shifted to stocks. I was trying to pick stocks, and that was an exciting time. I made
Mhm.
some disastrous decisions. It was great fun. Uh, it was, if I could go back and have the glass, I'd
At least
probably
you can
choose different
smile about it, right?
different stocks and things. And as I've gotten older, I've moved back towards more managed funds
Mm.
and things as I have less energy for it. And so when I was starting up a company, I would typically pull back from individual stocks and put things into a managed portfolio.
Mhm.
And I found that I also, you talked about managing risk historically, and even now in my businesses, I use insurance products
Mhm.
heavily. We've got $1 million on each of our partners just to make sure that if something goes sideways with the business, we've got it there. So that's a simple, classic use of insurance. You've talked about other things today, some of which I hadn't thought of before. Um, but I like I like using multiple products. I don't like being never put your eggs all in one basket is a really good
Diversification.
piece
Yep.
of advice, diversification. And I think the other thing that about risk for me is about maintaining liquidity. And so with that, that means my house is a great asset, you know, but I if I need quick funds, this may or may not be an easy way
Mhm.
to get it, depending on how much I've got, what size the mortgage is, and things like that. So I like to make sure that I've got some investments that are fairly liquid
Mhm.
and would give me, say, 3 to 6 months of comfort. Now, to have that comfort, you have to understand how much you spend. And
Mhm.
that's something I think a lot of people ignore. And you can adjust what you need to spend it on, even on things like groceries. I find that by changing my food management style in my home, I can shift how well I can take advantage of a lot of the sales that are on down at the local store and
Mhm.
so on.
Yeah,
So it's sometimes it's day-to-day risk that you're managing in your food supply, and sometimes it's kind of longer term for me.
I will say I personally relate to the food expense issue because I have two boys that are like eating me out of house and home. I can't get enough food into them, so that really speaks to me. And so
Yeah.
maybe, as we see a lot of the questions coming in, you can talk about some of those challenges, though, as you sort of did pre-retirement then in retirement, you've talked about those changes, your unfortunate situation with your wife, and we're so sorry to hear
Yeah.
about that. What other challenges can people learn from you on?
Well, I think we experienced significant health challenges very early on. And to a great extent, that was really a benefit for me
Mhm.
because we were young and resilient and able to adapt our lifestyle in that sense. And we also learned about how many resources, and this is something that the CARP advocacy, one of the reasons that I belong to CARP is because of the advocacy that they do for people in healthcare. And there are so many resources. And I've lived in the States. I worked as a VP down there for a corporation. And my goodness, we are fortunate in Canada as much as we know that we need to improve our systems and things, but really find out, and there are good resources locally for you. If you reach out to your local seniors groups, they will help you find access to health advisors who can help you really balance how you experience all of this. So
Mhm.
we were fortunate that way. And with multiple sclerosis, we could turn to the MS Society, for example. And both in Alberta, when I lived there, and here in BC, we found that, for example, UBC has an incredibly good MS focused healthcare
Mhm.
center, and the people there were able to direct us towards things that were available in drug trials that we either could or couldn't take advantage of, and things like that. Also, for me personally, one of the ways that I manage it is I do exercise throughout the day. I try to keep my body moving because I do sit at a desk a lot. And I
Mhm.
also make sure that I take high quality supplements. And
That's great.
I found one brand that I really like. I won't advertise here, but it's important to make sure that you're getting the nutrient base so that as we age, I've found that since I've refocused, I've always had a good diet, but since I've refocused, two things have happened. One is I've cut my costs
Mhm.
a lot, and the other is I'm feeling much better. And I've gone through things. I had a tumor on my spine at one point. It was benign, but I had to learn to walk again and
Mhm.
things like that. So there have been a lot of challenges, and each one I've reached out, I found out what kind of support there is, and then really leaned into that support to help manage the financial impact for us at each stage.
Well, I want to say, Dan, thanks so much for sharing a little bit of your story. I think we could talk to you for hours on end, but I know that we would like to finish off this webinar answering some of the great questions that hopefully our conversation has triggered and people walk away with some answers to their particular questions. So maybe I can pass it back to Anthony or Bill with a huge thanks, Dan, to sharing your story. I think we really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for the time, and I'm looking forward to hearing the answers to what's popping up.
Yes, thank you, Dan. And you may have some input on the questions too. Anthony, I know you have a pile of questions in front of you.
I do. A number of have built up, and there's a few themes. But because Dan had mentioned that he has recently been widowed or he's a widower, there is a few questions about planning for that instance. So I'm certain that everyone understands that one spouse will go before the other, but we don't always plan ahead for that. So maybe
My wife
Michael and
assures
Dan
me
can
that
help
it's
with that.
within 3 seconds, right? I'll go and then she'll go or the other way around. I know that doesn't work out. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, so what advice do you have for those who haven't,
Yeah.
considered their mortality?
So I think a couple of questions came in around probate. So maybe I'll just answer quickly because probate is something that happens with one of your um, your spouse will pass away. So just to quickly summarize that, probate is the legal system and it's based on each province. So the exact rules and processes are different depending on where you live in Canada. So please make sure you look at your local registrations. But it is the process that the legal system goes through to review your will and empower your executor to start to distribute your assets to your beneficiaries or how your will dictates. your loved one, your spouse, will likely be one of those beneficiaries. And so first and foremost, it's really important to have a will to make sure that that process goes in a timely manner, because you want your loved ones to get your estate as quickly as possible. And just the application can be 6 to 8 weeks before the process starts. There are also fees associated with probate that get charged. They're typically a percentage, and each province will have a different level. So Manitoba, example, doesn't have any fees, but BC, Ontario, for example, have higher fees. And that brings us to one of the key advices is to assign beneficiaries to some of your really important investments. So those are going to be your registered account, your RIF, your registered retirement income fund, your LIFT, any TFSAs that you might have, because these will pass to your beneficiary, your spouse, immediately, bypassing probate, avoiding probate fees in a very timely manner, and then typically provide tax benefits. So it allows your spouse to take on those assets while continuing to defer tax on them to varying degrees. I don't think I have time to get into the tax impacts on every single investment out there. So that's where talking to an advisor would be really helpful. But that would be the last thing I would say is the number one advice I would have when it comes to planning for, your passing away is have a will, have an executor, assign beneficiaries to all of your investment accounts to make sure that your spouse has the easiest possible time with their finances while they're obviously dealing with that difficult situation.
Yeah, I would only add to that that certainly having a will is the number one, but we know that many of our members have done their own wills using online forms. We know that they often don't include the kind of specifics around our investments and our insurances that you need to have. You really need to have your will done by a lawyer experienced in this area if you're going to make sure that what Michael outlined actually happens in your case.
The other thing I would suggest, Heather and I, when my parents passed, paid for our funerals. So when it came time for us now, it wasn't an issue for me. Everything was done. It really was an investment in de-stressing the situation for me. The other piece to look at, and I know this in BC, is to make sure that you not only have a will, but you also want to make sure that you've got someone assigned so that if you are incapacitated, there's somebody who can make the decisions for you with the medical team on the nature of your care and the extent of care.
Good point.
Yeah. So specific to the new product you're talking about, Michael, maybe just generally, so on the end of it, what if you pass away before your target date? And what if you live longer than your target date? So we're all hoping we're going to live a long time, but we don't know what that date is. So talk a bit about what it means if you pass away before or after that date. And then there was a question about the management fees. Everyone's concerned about what it costs to manage your money. So could you give us an idea for both of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for if you were to pass away sooner than anticipated, that solution sits within the traditional products. So, a registered retirement income fund or a life income fund or a TFSA, for example. And so, everything we just talked about on how your assets pass to your beneficiary would apply. So, any account balance that is remaining would go to your beneficiary as you designated it, with the specific tax treatment associated with whoever that beneficiary is. Obviously, spouses are dealt with differently than children or third parties. When setting your maturity date, you would work with one of our workplace financial advisors, and I'll just reiterate that those advisors within the workplace solution, so again, the benefits you get through your employer, are salaried employees that are focused on giving you the best advice versus any particular products. and they have particular tools and training to help understand your personal health situation to guide you in selecting the right maturity date. So again, talking to that advisor is really important in selecting that date, because it comes to the second part around one of the trade-offs with this new solution is we've ensured maximum flexibility in being able to access your money at any time, withdraw it, pass it to your beneficiaries. But unlike an annuity, it doesn't provide you a guarantee for the rest of your life. If you want that guarantee for the rest of your life, that's where buying an annuity becomes really important. But one of the trade-offs is less flexibility to your money. And so you need to decide whether you're more concerned about living much longer than you think you're going to live, where an annuity could really be the right thing for you, or whether you're comfortable with your maturity age, where you don't have any money after that maturity age.
Bill, there was a question that came in about the RIFs, the retired income funds, and CARP's advocacy. Can you just give our listeners an idea of what happens when your RSP converts to a RIF, and CARP's point of view on that?
At the current time, there's an age around between 70 and 72 when you must, by law, start divesting yourself of your RIF. And CARP has been Gaines advocating for that to be changed for many years. It was an age and a rule that was created literally decades ago and does not work well in this new time of people living longer and working longer. So we have been advocating with all the all government and all the parties to stop putting a forced deadline on getting rid of the RIFs. But we still have to, and Michael might want to comment on what the best, if since we're forced to do it, Michael, what should we do? What's the best thing to do?
So the best thing to do is to plan ahead. You really do want to make an active decision to convert your RSP or your pension into the appropriate product. If you don't take action, then we are legally required to convert that to an annuity, which I think a lot of people might not want that as your decision, because you again lose access to your money. So it's really important that you actively engage and make that decision. And again, advice, no matter where you get it, can really help you make that particular decision.
I think the
I
important
think.
thing to know
Oh,
is you don't have to turn it into, you don't have to take that. Of course, there are other choices that you can do with that money.
yes. You don't have to take it as an annuity, is I think what you're saying, Bill.
Right? Yes.
Yes, that's the
Once it,
only that's the only thing that happens if you don't make a decision. The last thing I'll maybe highlight, and I don't know if there's a question out there, is a lot of people ask about CPP or QPP and should it be delayed, for example. And so I would highlight that in the industry, there's a view that enhancing your CPP or QPP by waiting to take it is one of the best annuity purchases you can make, because it is indexed. It actually increases each year based on the government's calculation of investment. And so every year you delay taking CPP, for example, it will increase by roughly 8% to a maximum at 70 of about 40%. And so by converting your RSPs or using your TFSAs or your pension sort of early on, delaying CPP or QPP so that you increase that amount, which then will last you the rest of your life and be adjusted for inflation, could be one of the most important decisions you make in creating lasting, livable income in retirement. So again, it's all about your specific situation and what assets you have. So please talk to an advisor who can use planning tools to make sure you make the right decision, optimal decision for you. That's something that you really should consider.
Our members operate along the financial spectrum from low income to high income, certainly. But we have questions from people who are on the lower income scale, who are just getting the government pensions and the CPP, OAS, perhaps GIS, and have very minimal savings. What advice can they get from a financial advisor? How can a financial advisor help them on the lower income spectrum?
Yeah, so within the workplace advice that we provide, so that's really what I can talk to. We focus on making sure we maximize your government benefits. So making sure that you know about all the available benefits that you could apply for, even helping you guide you to how to apply for those benefits. And then also considering how any assets that you do have might impact your qualification for those government benefits and sort of planning appropriately on how to access those assets so that you can maximize your benefits. So if you're in that lower end, then it's really about addressing that. It's called means testing. So for some benefits like OAS from the government, they take a look at your taxable income and at certain levels start to reduce your OAS benefits. And so being able to properly plan with an advisor to maximize those OAS and stop or reduce clawbacks is something that would really be beneficial to you.
Right. So the next question was about how much does someone need to start in their portfolio or in their savings to look at this product with Sun Life?
So the minimum purchase into the product's $25,000. You need to have a total of $75,000 with um, your group benefits program. So, once you have that amount, you can decide how much you want to put in. So 25 is the minimum. And then after that, you can decide how much exactly you want to put in. We would then work with you to illustrate or show you how much income you would get each year based on that investment amount. So you can make that decision on whether you want to put 20% of your assets in there, 90%, whatever makes sense for you based on the income that'll be generated.
And can you continue to make contributions to this over the years if you have income coming in as well?
You can continue to put money into the solution up until 10 years from the maturity age you select. So if you select 95 as your maturity age, you can put it up until 85, or if you do 100 up to 90, you can have multiple maturity ages. So you can have half of your money in 85 and half of your money in 95, for example. And you can make changes. So if you start off, for example, at 90, maturity age of 90, and then you know what, I really, think things are going really well. I'm taking my vitamins, I'm taking care of myself. I wish I knew the vitamin name. Maybe, Dan, you can share with people. You can move to the 95 maturity, tax deferred, no tax impact happens. You can just change your maturity date and we'll recalculate things for you.
One of the questions that is coming in is, can I get more information? Where do I go? So just so everyone knows, we're recording this and we're going to share the webinar recording with everyone who's registered. We'll also include some information on contacting Sun Life and the website and the links. So rest assured, we'll get all that information to everyone in short order. And perhaps if Nima's on the line, he can put that into the chat box for everyone as well, just so people have that link and phone number handy. Bill, just referencing CARP's advocacy on finding financial advisors and how to find a trustworthy advisor. What's CARP's current advice to our members on ensuring they get the right kind of advice?
I respond to that in a way that I hate to hear people say it all the time, but I'm glad you asked that question, because if you hadn't asked it, I would have answered it. You really have to be careful that you're getting an advisor who is experienced and knowledgeable in dealing with your kind of issues. And you can't do that just by looking at their name, the fact that they're a friend of a relative, or that they have a bunch of letters after their name. It's a self-regulated and some people would say unregulated area. The best way to find a good financial advisor is go either to a reputable company like Sun Life or someone that you know you can depend on, or talk to your friends, your family, and find out who has had real success, really good advice from somebody who understood what seniors need to know and wasn't just trying to sell them things that would be profitable to them as a salesman. It's a bit of a wild territory these days, and you really have to be careful and make some good inquiries before you settle on one person. It may even mean interviewing a few advisors until you have one that you're comfortable with. But don't depend on just because they have some letters after their name that seem to indicate that they have some experience in dealing with seniors. That's not necessarily so.
Thanks, Bill. That's important advice and good for everyone to take note of. A couple of questions came in and perhaps related to another one of our CARP recommended partners, but about those who are house rich and cash poor, and questions about reverse mortgages. Maybe Bill and Michael could both weigh in and just on that option and who it might be suitable for.
Bill, would you like to start, or do you want me to?
I'll start just to say that what CARP continues to tell people, there are many ways of finding income and money as we go older. And reverse mortgages for many people is a very good one, but it's not for everybody. And that's once again why you need good financial advice. In some situations, it's the perfect and sometimes the only solution. In other cases, there are better solutions to have money out of your capital ownership of a home in other ways. So you have to get advice for you. It's a very, very personal decision.
And I think what I would just highlight or add to what Bill said is, as you get that advice, some things you want to be asking about is obviously the fees associated with that reverse mortgage, because as it is, you're able to tap into one of your assets, and sometimes the biggest and most important one you have, it can be at a higher cost than other options. And so you just want to be cognizant of the type of costs that you're taking on and how that will play over a period of time. So I would just motivate you to make sure you have a direct conversation with whoever you feel is qualified to provide you that advice, to make sure you understand how that decision will play out over time on your overall financial wellness.
Well, I'm not sure if we have time for any more questions, but I might put it back to you, Michael, to maybe finish up. We've come to the hour mark, and we've answered a lot of questions. So back to you guys for final words, perhaps.
I think hopefully my final word is thank you very much. I sincerely have enjoyed working with CARP, hearing directly from you on your concerns and what you're focused on. As I opened up, I find this as a very personal topic, right? I find it personal for my family who are going through retirement. I have these conversations at Thanksgiving dinner. I understand, I feel these real concerns, and that makes me really passionate about what I work on a regular basis. And I would simply finish by saying, because of that passion, that concern for my fellow Canadians, make sure you engage and get this advice from who you feel is the most qualified for doing that. I personally believe Sun Life is a wonderful place to go, but if you want to get it from some other trusted advisor, please do so, whether it's service for fee, whether it's a local advisor from some other company. I think it's just more important to get the support and the guidance that you need to make prudent decisions than anything else. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to continuing the conversation in some other forum at some other time.
Good. And Dan, do you have any final words before we close off?
Thank you very much. I really enjoy, I value CARP so much because of what it brings and the protection it gives me. Just one point, it's not just our retirement that we need to be having those Thanksgiving dinners conversations about. We need to be, through those conversations, modeling and engaging with the next generation so that they start their planning early. It's so much easier to put small amounts away over a longer period than it is to find lump sums later. And I really encourage you to start that conversation with your kids, with your nieces and nephews, with your families and friends, for two reasons. One is get them started early, and also so they know what you want as they start to take care of us as we move into our senior years and may need more support from outside.
That's great.
Thanks again.
I think that's a great note to finish on. Thank you, Dan Dybel. Thank you, Michael Carter. Thank you for all who are watching. Watch for the recording, and please feel free to share it with friends and family so they can get the message too. Thank you for watching the webinar. Good afternoon.
Great day. Bye, everyone.
Take care. See you all soon. Thanks again.